The names of the people in these stories have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. Should you hear a story that sounds familiar to your life and you are offended by its retelling, oh well, you should have behaved better. These are holistic tales. Gangsta Bae. Summer 2005, I am 19 years old. It was a warm Friday night in South Central Los Angeles. I am a commuting college student who was enjoying the freedom of my parents being out of town to visit my father's family in Missouri for 3 weeks. Though I consider myself an adult, it will be a couple months before I actually come out as gay to my mother. Therefore, every move I made was very discreet and calculated. Taking advantage of my mother and father being on an extended vacation, my friends Darius and Troy were chilling in my living room. I met Troy the summer before my senior year of high school. We shared a mutual friend, Kara, who thought because we were both gay, we'd like each other. And to be fair, we did fall for each other initially. This came to a screeching halt when it occurred to us that we were both bottoms, so we chose friendship instead. I actually had my first gay club experience with Troy, and that night ended up a disaster as I missed my curfew and fucked up the axle on my brand new car. That's a story for another show, but he and I became good friends who went out together. It was on one of those nights with Troy at the Arena Cafe on Santa Monica Boulevard that we met Darius. Darius was interested in me, but he was with the guy that he was dating that night, so he sent his 2 girlfriends over to get my number. I declined because I didn't want to deal with no nigga who couldn't approach me himself. He later came over and we exchanged numbers. It was years before I found out the real reason why he sent his girlfriends over to me. Darius and I tried our hand at dating, but it was very short-lived. I'm talking 2 to 3 weeks tops before we decided to move on separately. After a few months, we also became friends, much like Troy and me. So this particular Friday night, we were all watching television and trying to figure out what we wanted to get into that night. We wanted to find the niggas. LA didn't provide many options for black gay men under the age of 21. And the places we could go were so boring and definitely not our demographic. Darius was logged into MySpace on my computer and found out about a monthly party called First Friday. He was informed that it was 21 and over, but they tend to be very lenient if you're over 18 and seem mature to the bouncers. There was a website that had the flyer with the address on it. Seeing the sexy chiseled black man on the cover excited us all, and we decided that this was definitely the move for the night. Troy, who wasn't mobile at the time, hopped in the car with Darius so they could both go home and change for the evening. I told them I would meet them at Darius's mother's house where he lived after I was showered and ready, and we could all go together. It was about 10:30 p.m. as I drove up Crenshaw en route to Darius's place of residence. My stereo was blasting the latest MP3s downloaded to a compact disc. This was 2005, y'all. The likes of Missy Elliott, Gwen Stefani, and Snoop Dogg soundtracked the night lights and my anticipation of what was to come. When I pulled up to the urban duplex, I called Darius and let him know I was outside, and he said he and Troy were coming right out. Both came out of the home very stylish and moisturized and eager for the night. Troy came up to my passenger window, signaling me to roll it down. He let me know that Darius wanted to take his car and I should just follow them. In the onslaught, that one or more of us found dick in the club. I obliged because I completely understood. I followed behind Darius the best I could in Los Angeles traffic. We hopped on the 110 freeway northbound, passing landmarks like USC and the Staples Center. Our trek ended just off the 10 freeway going east. We were downtown, and because I didn't know much about the area, I was naturally anxious. We pulled up to an industrial building with a line of black men wrapping around in length. We found 2 spots next to each other and proceeded to park our cars and get out. I double-checked that my car was locked and that I didn't have anything important laying in view. After all, it's an area that was seedy, and I didn't need anything crazy to happen that I would have to explain to my parents while they were out of town or even when they got back. I just didn't want to deal with it. Troy, Darius, and I eagerly walked toward the line of fine-ass men. We exchanged our comments of whom we were checking out and who we were going to find once we got inside and how we were going to do it. After about 10 minutes, we made it to the front of the line. The bouncer asked for our IDs. I found myself quietly praying that he let us in and didn't embarrass us, because if we had to walk back to our cars in front of all of those men, I'd probably die. I would probably die. He stated that we can come inside, but we could not have a wristband to drink, and if caught with alcohol, we would be removed. We obliged, kind of. As soon as we walked through the darkly tinted doors, there are two men with a cash box accepting the cover of $20 for the night. We pay and begin to explore the space. There was a long hallway in view. All I see is people walking across from room to room. This location by day turned out to be a studio used for indie films and porno flicks. Each room had a different setup. On the right side was an art museum setup with statues, portraits, glass cases. Across from this room looked like a dentist's office. It had a little chair, it had the doctor's smock, the knickknacks that make a scene complete. Trekking down the hall, we saw a locker room set up. And next to that was a luxurious bathroom that looked like it belonged in a Beverly Hills mansion. On the other side of that was a red room with whips and chains. And then there was a small theater that was playing Coco Dorn's porn. When we reached the end of the path, there was a large open area that had a dance floor and a bar. Men were wall to wall, and I instantly felt like a kid in a candy store. Darius saw someone he knew and went to greet them. Being the rebellious one he is, he also asked if they would buy a drink for him on the low, knowing damn well what the bouncer just told us. But hey, that's Darius. Troy and I found a section perfect for surveying the cuties in the building, and we were just sitting there excited at the possibilities. For someone who's only been to clubs that cater to white and Asian people or below the age of 21, this was such a treat for me. I was very much a hopeless romantic, so I was determined to meet my future boyfriend somewhere in this club. Whew, hindsight is 2020, y'all. I've grown, I swear, I promise. Darius, with drink in hand, reconvened with us, and we began to walk around. Between the three of us, we represented three spectrums of melanin, so eyes were glued and passes were made at all of us. We were back in that narrow hallway, and it was even tighter now because men were filling it up, and it made it really hard to get through the middle. Just as Darius turned right to go into a room, I felt someone grab my hand. As I turned around, it was a very handsome brown-skinned guy with doughy brown eyes and a bald head. He was only slightly taller than me at about 5'8". He appeared to be muscular and very masculine. He said, "Where you going?" "I'm not sure," I replied. "Well, since you're not sure, you should chill with me." Troy and Darius looked back, but caught on that my attention was diverted, and they said they would catch up with me later. The handsome stranger said jokingly, "Don't worry, he good with me. He'll see y'all in a minute." I was turned on by his aggression. "So what's your name, little cutie?" he said. "I'm Kevin. What's your name?" "Daddy." I said, "Excuse me?" He's like, "You heard me. My name is Daddy." I'm sorry. I have a father, and I'm not calling you that." He's like, "Oh, you're a little smart ass, I see. Okay, bet. My name is Chris, though." "Oh, okay. Nice to meet you, Chris." "You look mad young, shorty. How old are you?" "I'm 19. "Oh, damn. You need to be careful in here. I know these men will tear your little ass up." I smirk and I ask, "How old are you?" "I'm 26 and probably too old to be messing with you. You cute as hell, though, yo." Chris and I continue to chat and even went to the dance floor to groove a bit. I was grinding on him something serious when he stopped me and said, "Yo, we gotta stop." I, pretending to be aloof and just, not knowing shit, it's like, why? Why do we have to stop? Knowing damn well why we had to stop. He replied, "Because I'll have you in a hospital tonight for fucking the shit out of you." I look at him like, oh, damn, like that? He looked me up and down and he said, "Come with me." He grabbed my hand, firmly pulling me into a low-lit room. He stands in front of me. Then he starts kissing me. This kiss sends electric shots right to my dick. Like, I'm so turned on by his intensity. He then begins to unbuckle his belt and undoes the top button of his jeans. He's grabbing my ass and he's still kissing me and like kind of kissing on my neck. And I'm just like, okay, what's about to happen right now? So he takes my hand and pushes it down his pants. His dick was down to his fucking knee. That shit was huge. It was like uncomfortably big. At this time, I wasn't a fan of anal sex because that shit was painful, so I definitely didn't want to give the impression that I could take him. He then said to me, "This is why I told you to stop," while I'm actually grabbing him and he's putting his hand over my hand while I'm caressing this long ass dick. So I just say, "Oh shit." He's like, "Yeah, you like that?" And I'm like, I mean, this is super big. He replied, "You'll get used to it." And I don't know about that. Well, let me know what's up, because I can't be fooling around with someone who can't take dick. I just smirk at him because I'm not really sure what to say to him about that. Like, it was like I can't guarantee this, so I'm just, And I guess it made him feel awkward because he zips up and buttons himself back up and we walk back out to the dance floor. It's after midnight now and the club is at capacity. It's humid inside from all the bodies gyrating. We notice that there's a staircase just outside the back door that leads to another area where there's another DJ and a highly populated dance floor. Chris and I walk down toward it. I see Darius and Troy again, and they are giving me the "bitch, what have you been up to" look with these small smirks that cracked me up. I just smile back. Just before walking over to them, Chris grabs me by the hand and says, "Yo, I'm about to get out of here. Let's exchange numbers." I give him my number and he calls me so I can have his. He then says, "You should come over when you leave here." "Okay," I reply. But deep inside, I knew I wasn't going to do that because I was afraid of having to endure him penetrating me. But I also didn't want to give like the impression that I wasn't interested. But I was actually scared of that dick. He said, "Bet," hugged me, went back upstairs. That was the last time I ever saw Chris. I was happy to find Troy and Darius, who both had cute boys they were dancing with, on the dance floor. The area was filled with fine-ass men partying to hip-hop. The DJ was effortlessly spinning all the best tracks of the time and even some throwback tracks as well. I stood near a platform where some guys were sitting with their drinks. I was just bobbing my head to the music, but also reflecting on if I made the right decision about Chris. He was sexy. And I also had some rare freedom with my parents being out of town. Now, when my mom was around, she didn't play about curfews in her house, and she didn't like me staying out all night at someone else's place. Yes, I was 19, but I was still in her house and I had to live by her rules. So if I was going to take action, tonight was the night to take action. In the midst of my daydream and recollection, I felt someone push up behind me while dancing. "Why your cute ass ain't dancing?" I turn around and I say, "I am kinda." This guy was 6 feet, dark skin, a low fade, nice white teeth, strong nose, beautiful lips. He had on a red and white baseball jersey that was open, showing his chiseled bare chest and abs. His look was completed with a silver chain and retro Jordans. "Okay, well, you can kind of dance with me then, sexy." I could tell this guy had a lot of confidence and charisma. We danced, smiling at one another. Then one of the guys that Darius was dancing with came over and whispered something to him. Darius then walks over and says, "Kevin, why you dancing with Dre?" So I say, "Oh, y'all know each other?" Dre then replies, "Yeah, we went to high school together." "So your name is Kevin?" I shook my head in agreement. "Well, can I come kick it with you sometime, Kevin?" I blush and reply, "Hell yeah, Dre." He's like, "That's what's up." The DJ later announces that his last call for alcohol, which means the event will be ending soon. Darius and Troy come over to me and ask if we can all come back to my house, including their new friends. I say, "Why not?" Dre then says, "Well, damn, if my boys are coming over, can I come too?" I reply, yes, you can come too. We walked out to the parking lot and load into 3 cars. Dre sees I'm driving solo and motions to his friends who are loading into 1 car that he's going to ride with me. Darius and Troy are in the 3rd car. On the way to my house, Dre is staring at me while I drive. He begins to comment that he can tell that I have good taste in music by what I'm playing. He can also tell that I'm not a hood dude because I'm too nice and I talk proper. I just laugh and keep on driving. When we pull into my neighborhood, I'm a bit apprehensive of my neighbors witnessing 6 men, including myself, walking to my house at 2 a.m. I tell everyone to be quiet until we get in the house. Once inside, Troy and his date for the evening take the couch. Darius and his guy take the guest room. Dre follows me to my room. I close the door. So this is the good boy's room, he says. I'm not that damn good. Don't get it twisted, I reply. He was like, you ain't a gangster like me, he says while sitting on my bed and removing his shoes and jersey. Damn, he was sexy. I said, oh, you a gangster, huh? And I said it in a sarcastic tone, kind of not believing him, but also curious of what he meant by that. He was like, nigga, yeah, I'm a blood. And he said it with a very serious tone. And then looking over his clothes, I said, okay, this nigga does have on a lot of red, so he just may be telling the truth. Oh, damn, I replied. He said, it's cool, though. You safe. So what's good? What you mean, I replied. We going to bed or what? I kind of shake my head. Yeah, let's do that. Dre stripped down to his boxers and waited for me to take my clothes off as well. I laid next to him and we cuddled. We ended up talking about random shit and continued to get to know one another. I was really feeling him. There was a knock on my bedroom door. It was Troy and his date, Dion, smiling big and half dressed. Dion said to Dre, hey, yo, bro, you got a condom? Dre said, I got enough for me, kind of motioning that, looking at me like, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what's going down. I replied, I have some condoms. I went to my dresser and handed them one of the small pouches I got from the free clinic when I had my last HIV test. They took them and I closed the door behind them. Dre looked at me and said, so they gonna be the only ones having fun? I smiled at him and said, what do you have in mind? He said, I mean, I'm chilling. I mean, whatever you want to do is cool. We ain't got to fuck, but I ain't against the shit either. I laid down next to him and then he rolled on top of me. He began kissing me and licking my neck. Then he starts grabbing my ass and proceeding to move my underwear. He then flips me over on my stomach and started eating my ass. I moaned to let him know that I enjoyed it, and he continued for a few minutes. He then came back up and laid next to me while motioning me to his erection in his boxers. As I began to move towards his torso, he pulled his underwear down. He, like Chris from the night before, because it's now 3 in the fucking morning, had a large, thick dick, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was exciting and matched his beautiful body, and it went well with his confidence. Today we would call that big dick energy. I gave him head a bit, and we both jacked off until we came and went to sleep. Dre and I woke the next afternoon, both infatuated with one another. He left the room for a bit to speak with his friends. When he returned, he said he was about to go home and asked if he could come back and chill with me later that day. I told him yes. He kissed me and said he'd see me later then. I smiled. Dre came back later that evening and stayed with me for the rest of the weekend. I enjoyed his energy and I learned a lot about him. He felt like a protector in a way because he was a gangster and just his way of life was completely different from mine. And I enjoyed that. The feeling was short-lived though. The following week, he and I had a disagreement over something super small and petty. And he put his hands on me. Not enough to hurt me, but enough to let me know that he will be abusive in the future. In that moment of fear, I made up an excuse to get away from him, and I ended up taking him home. I then called my cousin and asked if I can come hang with her. I locked up my parents' house, and just in case he popped up, I stayed with my family the rest of the time my parents were on vacation. Dre called my phone endlessly. My voicemail would be maxed out with his messages. I mean, a lot of them were very threatening. Some of his favorites were, "Where the fuck you at? Man, I swear to God, you better not be with no other nigga. You better not be fucking somebody else." I just shook my head and I was just happy that I wasn't near my house. But then I was just like, damn, like, this is mad crazy. Like, I just met this dude like the week prior, and in that short time, he puts his hands on me and now he's threatening me. Like, what the fuck is happening? He eventually gave up and stopped calling. He and I talked once on the phone a few months later. His tone seemed hurt that I ghosted him the way I did, but I explained to him that I could never be with someone who will put their hands on me. And like he said, I'm a good dude, and that's just not the type of life I'm about. And if he wants to be a gangster, that's cool with him. And that was that. And we never spoke again. And that is my holistic tale of Gangsta Bae.